Hi guys, welcome to my little weird patch of the internet. I'm somebody who likes the sound of their own voice a little bit too much, so I decided to come on here today and give my opinion about what's better, the Generation 1 or the Generation 3 Monster High. Because I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to dolls, I am incredibly opinionated, especially when it comes to Monster Highs, because they were first, like, collectible dolls that I collected that weren't just Barbies that I made have iconic LGBT relationships with each other. So I just wanted to have a little rant about this. So today we're going to be asking the very important question: did Generation 3 do it better than Generation 1? Now, I am going to give a disclaimer before I really get into this video. I'm actually recovering from not only falling down 2 flights of stairs, I'm also recovering from losing my voice because I had the flu that is absolutely infesting Britain right now. So I apologise that I sound like the most nasally person on earth. But we are going to focus in. Sis, why is this so important to you, especially when you're so late to the Discord? And I will say that I fully understand that I'm very late to this subject, because Gen 3 is not that new anymore. It's, if anything, quite old, and they've launched a lot in the collection, and I'm going to be mainly focusing on the first lot of Gen 3. So I am late to the subject, but I am in the position recently where I am around people that are supporting my interests a little bit more. I'm around somebody who's very much funding my doll collection. So it kind of pushed it back into my solar system, and it really got me thinking about which is better, Gen 1, which I grew up with and love absolutely to my core, or Generation 3 that have definitely made some bold choices when it comes to their dolls. So I thought I'd just have a little rant about it today. So to really get into the nitty gritty of why this is so important to me, we're going to go back in time, all the way back to 2001, when 1, your Lord and Saviour myself was born, but 2, one of the most iconic doll lines was launched. No, not Monster High, Bratz dolls. Why is this important? It is important because I never grew up in a time period where there weren't those girl dolls. Brat dolls were really criticised when they first came out of being too sexual, very explicit, even though they weren't, but you know. So I always grew up in kind of a generation where there was this divide between dolls. You could either be a Barbie doll or you could be a brat. But in a world when you only had 2 options, why be either? Why not be a monster? Now, a few things to get off the line before we start discussing Gen 1 compared to Gen 3 is that this is not the first time Monster High has completely relaunched their collection. I may get the year wrong, but I'm sure it's 2016. The most dreadful doll line came out ever from Monster High. They took away everything that made them special. They took away articulation, which meant a lot of collectors just were left with dolls that were just like this. And it's not really giving £30 worth of collectibles, is it, to be honest? So that was a big issue. Plus they took away the clothing designs. But another thing that we will get back to later, because it has been a recurring issue, is they also made the dolls a lot more childish, which was a very weird decision, especially when you look at stats for the modern day now, when actually more adults are buying toys than children. But I should probably stop ranting and actually get into the doll comparison. But going into this, I am going to say, I have slightly engaged with the new media around Monster High. So there is now live action and there is an animated series. To be honest, the only thing I know about the live action is apparently they got caught using Shein clothing, which, I mean, Queen, they were keeping it realistic. But I've not really engaged with that too much. I have engaged with the anime a little bit, just because I wanted a little bit of knowledge for this video. But I will be basing my opinions off the dolls, off the personalities they had in the original web series, because that's the one I grew up with, that's the one I know, that will always be my canon. I will be mentioning little aspects that have changed and taking it into consideration. So let's get into it. Starting with the one, the only, my girl Draculaura. I start off by saying I've got the pictures of the doll comparisons down here on a tablet. So if I'm gazing off into the distance, I'm not getting distracted again. I am actually looking at the dolls. But Draculaura, one of the iconic characters from Monster High, and I think definitely probably the most recognisable. That might be a bold statement because Frankie was technically pushed as the it girl, but Draculaura, I mean, I think the fact that there's like a lot of independent merching just of her does kind of show for that. And if you can't tell, I was very inspired growing up by Draculaura. Now, looking at the two in comparison, I will say I never had the original Draculaura doll. I had the Draculaura doll that came in the 2-pack with Claude Wolf. And as far as I know, that was the only Draculaura I had. I was a Claudine Wolf girly as a kid. It very much swapped that I am a vampire lover. Now I'm a bit older. But as a kid, I was more a Claudine girly. So I only had the one Draculaura, and it wasn't the original Draculaura. It was the 2-pack one. But this Draculaura outfit, I mean, I'm just going to take a second to gaze at it, is iconic. It has always been iconic. I mean, look at her. And as a kid that grew up in a very like quiet area where there wasn't much going on, Monster High were definitely a big impact on me getting into alt fashion and kind of wanting to make that move into a little bit more of a darker aesthetic, a little bit more of like, you know, pink on black. That will never go out of fashion. Never go out of fashion. And Draculaura very much was the it girl for it. And also, I have seen a lot of criticism for this, but I loved her original voice actor in the web series. I know it was dreadful, but it was good dreadful, okay? So I loved it. But now we look at Gen 3, which I'm going to be straight off the bat, I love. I stopped collecting Monster High when I went to uni, as well as a lot of other things I was collecting at the time, just because I was moving into uni. I was moving around the country. I did not have room to take these dolls with me, so I just stopped. And like I said, they'd been rebooted at this point, so the newer versions were dreadful anyway, so it was more just trying to collect older dolls. And I was like, right, I have to be financially responsible so I can be unfinancially responsible at the weekends at uni. So I just stopped, and I never really thought I'd get back into it. And then this Draculaura comes out and I lose my little brain. I was obsessed with her. I wanted her so badly. It really just emerged that love I had for Monster High dolls. And oh my god, is she iconic. We are going to take a moment to talk about why this worked so well as a transition from Gen 1 to Gen 3. And we have to start with the best part, the hair. Now, I am going to criticise Monster High later in this video for kind of going with the current trends when it comes to their dolls, but the split hair dye is one that I completely agree in, and I think they did so well, because everybody and their mother these days has a split hair dye. Like, everybody has it, and the fact they took it from being pink streaks to a pink half and half was genius, and I love it. I think it works so well for her. And also, and I may be getting a little bit deep on this, in my tiny bit of research, I did learn that Draculaura is apparently now also a witch as well as a vampire. Which, okay, cool, get creative. But, you know, it kind of, her two personalities, vampire, witch. I'm probably reading into this too much. I am definitely reading into this too much. But anyway, I think the split dye was such a good decision on Monster High's part. It's very much become part of the kind of e-girl alt kind of fashion, having that split dye. And I think it was so clever. Pick a doll with this colour scheme to do the half and half. And I'm honestly hoping they do it with a few of the other dolls. There's a few where I'm like, oh, I think it could really work. But that set out for me immediately. And also, you might have noticed my girl's looking a little bit different in the body. Now, I am going to be really strict with this, and I'm going to have no ball with this. She is not a plus size doll. People have tried to kind of push her in that category, and Monster High are also a bit guilty for this, for kind of being like, well, we've got a plus size doll. And they do when you look at more characters like Catty Noir. I haven't seen that doll in person, and I think I just butchered her name, but I believe she is a slightly bigger mold. But Draculaura is not a plus size doll. But my girl's thick. Like, she's got some thighs on her, and that made me love her, because as a big girl, she looks good. She looks really good. And I also do think the fact they made her shorter works very well for her. I don't know how many of you have been around short girls, but they've got that sparky attitude, and I just think it works so well. And I will say, I never personally as a kid was affected by my dolls when it came to how I viewed my own body. And I think that's because I very much grew up with a carer that was like, well, where's Barbie's internal organs? You know, it's silly, don't look at dolls for your body image. But that is not, you know, I am a one person case. There are tons of little girls around the world, little girls, little boys, anywhere in between, that will be affected by dolls, and they will look at dolls' bodies and be like, oh, so is that how I'm supposed to look? Because dolls very much used to have to represent the kind of norm. Barbie was the dream 50s girl, you know, hasn't changed since. Bratz dolls, even though they had a little bit more curvage to them, still were very much the typical body. So I'm really glad that Monster High have kind of emerged from that, because obviously lines like Barbie did do plus size dolls and are reaching out a little bit more, but it always kind of feels a little bit pandering. And the fact that Monster High made one of their main, and like I said, probably most iconic characters a little bit on the thicker side, I see what you're doing there, and I appreciate it so much. A thick, short queen. It is chef's kiss, and I love her so much. I also think costuming wise, and this is talking about all the new Gen 3 Draculoras, they managed to keep it quite accurate. I will say they lost a lot of like the kind of lace effects that Draculaura used to have a lot of, and the kind of very elaborate over the topness I feel like was lost a little bit. They do tone it down a bit, and I'm not going to discuss it whilst talking about Draculaura, because there's another doll that I need to discuss it a lot more with, where they kind of go off the current trends or trends that have just passed, especially 2020 trends, aka COVID trends, which we will get into that later because it plays a massive part in these dolls, I believe. But they turn her outfits down a little bit, but they've always kept kind of her core. They're always pink and black. They always follow this kind of theme of layering, which I do really appreciate. And also when I think about vampires, I think about layers. You know, this girl's old. She's been layering up her outfits. I will say one thing I'm really disappointed is when Draculaura first came out, so in Gen 1, she had this kind of umbrella motive. She had it in the original doll. She had it in the doll I had, and I think a few other dolls had it. And obviously that is in reference to not being able to go out in the sun. And the fact they dropped that annoyed me. Bring that back. That was just clever. But Draculaura, if you can't tell, I actually think did really well. There are definitely some aspects where I was worried at first. So one of them being they've obviously got slightly more childish faces now. I don't think Draculaura falls into this category too much, but they've definitely dumbed down her makeup a little bit. It's not as dark, it's not as edgy, but more recent dolls that have came out of her definitely do have a darker makeup palette. So they're definitely not shying away from it fully with her, which kind of reassures me on what they're planning to do with that. I will say though, one of my big issues with Monster High has been that they've kind of moved away from them being monsters. And I was talking to my partner and I was like, oh, they haven't done that with Draculaura. And he goes, well, kind of, she's just an e-girl with fake fangs. And I can't argue with that statement. It's true. But I love her. I love my little e-girl with fake vampire fangs. I love her. So you know what? She is going in A tier. I have said it, not A tier, S tier. She is going in S tier. I don't understand how, I can't do the normal alphabet. Don't give me a whole new alphabet to rank things. She is going in S tier where she belongs. I just love her so much. I do really believe this is queen material doll, and she deserves every single bit of it. But now we've talked about a doll that I clearly love, and I do think they did better for many reasons, body positivity reasons, just the fact that they've been able to modernize her, because it doesn't mean I don't like the original Draculaura, I do, but they've modernized her for a new audience, yet I do think very much kept her essence, and I appreciate that so much when it comes to modernizing dolls. It's something that's going to have to happen. Monster High was always going to have to change slightly for the times, and I think they did it in the right way. Now we've talked about one I loved, let's talk about Claudine Wolf. Now, for a little bit of insight, Claudine Wolf was actually the second ever Monster High doll I got, Frankie being the first, because everybody got Frankie first. And she was my favourite. I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I probably had the most Claudine Wolf dolls. I think I had around 8 just Claudine Wolves. Probably more, actually, because she was in a lot of 2-packs as well, because I was a big Howleen Wolf fan as well. And let's just talk about Claudine, because she is the it girl. Claudine Wolf very much was bred off the Bratz doll aesthetic. She's got fur on, she's got leopard, she's got a short skirt, high boots, and she is not afraid to show it. I think Claudine Wolf is the funniest example when you think about the fact that she did very much take from a lot of the Bratz fashion movement influence, And then when Bratz made their own version of like, I can't even remember what they were called. They were like Bratz dolls, but witches. Missed the ball with it. And I was like, you just had to make your dolls witches. Don't change the outfits. Their outfits are already iconic. Monster High is stealing certain aspects of your outfits. You don't need to change them, sweetie. You're doing fine. But Claudine Wolf was such an easy transition, I feel like, for me as a kid who went from playing with Bratz dolls to playing with Monster High dolls, because the outfits were very much the same. And also, her face, she's got attitude. She was always my feisty girl. I didn't necessarily play with my dolls within the canon of Monster High, but you know this girl was starting fights. She was scrapping, and I love that. As a bit of a scrappy child, having a doll that kind of had that scrappy energy was very important to me. I also was werewolf obsessed as a kid. I'm very glad that the furry movement like wasn't like really a thing when I was a kid, or like I wasn't aware of it, because I do think I would be one of those kids that would wear a tail. I'm gonna fully admit it, I 100% would have done that as a kid if it was a thing, but luckily it was not. So when I hear they're relaunching Monster High, I'm like, oh my god, I've got to see how Claudine Wolf looks, because she's one of my absolute favourites. What the hell did they do to this doll? Deal with you guys. I despise this. It's not even that I dislike it, like looking at it now, I despise it, and it could have been so good. Now, main things I'm going to focus on is, first off, the face. Like, I don't, face card and all, but this isn't good. They made Claudine Wolf look so childish, and I get it. They are children. It is about a high school. She is a kid. But she's also a monster. And I think the weirdest part when looking at it is they did things like brown out the end of her nose to make it look more like an animalistic nose. But this made her look cuter and more just like a human that wanted to look like Bambi than it did an actual werewolf, which I feel like makes no sense. If they're gonna make these changes, do it properly. They thickened out her eyebrows. They very much toned down her makeup, yet somehow kept the same colour palette roughly. Like, even the lipstick in the new Monster High dolls is appalling. They basically made them all have the same lipstick, which, where's the personality? We are monsters, we are proud. That lipstick's nothing to be proud of. Take it off, go put on a dark red. But it doesn't suit her at all, and even just on like making a doll level, it blends in with the skin tone too much. It does not stand out on this doll. Whilst the original Claudine Wolf, the lipstick was striking. She very much had that kind of like puff lip effect, and it worked so well for her because she looked like she was going to start a fight, because she was going to start a fight, because she knew she was that girl. This girl does not know she is this girl. This girl looks like she'd cry if someone slightly criticizes her fanfiction. Like, I have so much rage about this doll, and it's probably not healthy, but I feel a lot about this doll. I think like another weird aspect is the lightening of her hair. I just don't get why they did it, especially of her being a werewolf, and we're going to get back on the subject of her having fur in a second, because they also messed up a little bit with this, is that like her hair is an extension of her fur. So I really don't get why they changed the colour of it, especially to make it look washed out. Like, this doesn't look like a hair colour. It looks like when I used to forget to put more pink in my hair. Like, it doesn't look good. And then like the little streaks, yeah, they've got attitude, but also, yet again, the colours do not go. I feel like they mix matched colours that they used in the original Claudine doll, but then lightened them and expected that it would just still work the exact same. And it doesn't. Like, to be very frank, this does not work. I hate it. The fact, and they did this with a lot of the dolls, when we're selling to a younger audience, I get why the move away from maybe boots might be something admired. Monster High have always been criticised for how they're advertising to little girls and what they're advertising. But like, she's in ugly ass trainers. Telling little girls to wear ugly ass trainers is not healthy either. That is just as bad. Like, it does not work. And the fact, like, you know what? I think I've summed it up in my head. Her outfit, looking at her little dungarees, looks like a Primark outfit. Kids section Primark outfit. Look, I love Primark. We all love Primark. I'm British. I love Primark. I don't think the Monster High girlies are going to Primark, to be honest. So this pisses me off so much. And it doesn't work, you know. I get it. They wanted to move away from the short skirts, but then they've just put her in a short dungaree that makes her look 5. So that what are you improving on? What are you actually doing? And another really interesting aspect is in the new canon, Claudine Wolfe is half werewolf, half human. Come here, sweetie. No, sweetie, like, come really close. What do you think a werewolf is to start with? Who wrote this? Fire them. Because it really, like, I don't get it, because do they not know what a werewolf is? A werewolf is literally a human that is infected to become a werewolf. Like, whatever canon, there is obviously a lot of lore around werewolves. It is a human that's then, like, infected by something. So it makes no sense that that's how it happens. I do not know what that is. But it makes no sense. And why would you do it? It just does not work at all for the context at all. And I think another thing that really is confusing about it is that in the animation, which I watched a little bit of, they put a lot more focus and they put a little bit more time on the fact that they've given her fur. Because if anyone remembers the original animation, you didn't really ever see it. It wasn't like a main big aspect. But now in the new animated one, they've made like a real effort to put it in and add it into the design. Yet they've completely left it off the doll, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because surely, if you want to add it into your animated series, which the dolls have always been based more off that animated series, obviously the live action is more a new thing for Gen 3, then surely you'd add it on. And I think this could have been a really cool opportunity for Monster High to do a hairy girl. Like, it would have been fun. Later on, we're going to look at dolls like Cleo. They've added on skin textures to these dolls. Yet the doll that technically should have it the most has none. Like, I think it just goes back to that she looks more like Bambi than she does a Monster High doll. And I'm never going to be able to unsee it. And it does really, really great on me. She is a fashionista, not new for the doll industry, but she is very much stubbornly, and to a fault, like, it caused a lot of issues if you remember the original like web series, herself. Very much driven, very much what she wanted to be. And then I look at this and I'm like, you've stripped a really confident, really powerful character and made her look like this. Like, who's getting anything out of this? You know? And I will say, I like asked a few friends and they all had kind of similar opinions on the topic that she's not iconic anymore. But also, as someone who's in a lot of like collecting groups for them, you don't really see people collecting her in particular. And obviously there will be tons of people that have independent collections of the Gen 3 Claudine Wolfe. I do not speak for the masses, just myself. But it is a rare thing, because they have stripped everything that kind of made this unique and made it valuable and made it sellable, and just turned it into a Disney princess doll. If we're being real, she could be a Disney princess doll. And that's not very Monster High-ish, is it? Because we are monsters, we are proud, we are monsters, sing it loud. She ain't singing shit. I am going to be a fair god, though. As much as I'd love to put her in the bottom tier, she's getting second up from bottom, because I want to hate her completely, but it is still a good doll. They still did articulation. They still kept the ears, which was very important to me. I was worried they'd kind of wither down on that a bit. They still kept them pierced, which is very cool. The rest of the range for this one don't really improve, like Draculaura, where there's like different makeup, different outfits. It's still very much what's the selling point with this item. But you know what? You can't win them all. And she definitely didn't. Okay, to get back into it, and definitely one of the most iconic ones from the line, and one that always needs mentioning because she was the original, is Frankenstein, the absolute OG girly. Now, if you have even just slightly glanced at the franchise, you'll understand that this is the main selling point. The lead of the web series, the lead of all the movies. As far as I know, the new web series and the new live action one, it has very much kept up that quota. She was my first ever doll. That's a very first one to kind of preference. But also, I remember seeing the trailer so clearly. It is edged kind of into my mind. This was one of the most smartest trailers in media, I think, ever, and I think it worked so well. I remember I literally put the TV on in the morning, still groggy, still kind of half asleep. I can hear my gran downstairs, and this trailer came on. The soundtrack, the lighting, but also this doll looked amazing. Product-wise, if you were to just take it into marketing terms, it looked incredible. It stood out, it was bold. They very much obviously pushed her as the lead, and it worked really well. I mentioned prior to this, I took a lot of inspiration, especially clothing-wise, from these very much were the building blocks to me and going into a more alternative aesthetic. And I took a lot from Frankie, the most probably, especially kind of the shoes she wore. Now you can actually buy these shoes, and I'm gonna touch on this a little bit when talking about Frankie. You can buy quite a few of the doll's shoes in real life. They are very expensive, and obsessed with them. Her outfit as well, like looking at it now, like I said, Monster High lost a lot of aspect of having lace. I don't know why. I don't know if it's expensive to manufacture or they just think it's fallen out of fashion, and it has slightly fallen out of fashion. But, and I want to talk about it now, but I can't talk about it now. Chasing trends is not a good business move. The big chunky belt where you don't even need it, I remember being obsessed with that. The hair was very iconic. This was my kind of first introduction to like, oh, you can do fun things with your hair, and I've not stopped killing off my hair since, and I do love it. The makeup is very bold. You've got that really dark lip, but also the fact that, oh, her outfit, there's something iconic about it. Even the ugly aspects like having the tie work so well. The fact she's got the little school emblem on the bottom of it. It was a very textured outfit, and as a little neurospicy kid, I was obsessed. I would just like feel along the outfit, and I loved it. Her handbag is incredible. Out of all of them, this is probably the bag I want the most. And also what I find so funny, and this translates into the new Frankie doll, is she's wearing a school uniform for somewhere where you clearly do not need to wear a school uniform. And this follows onto the new doll, and I think it just kind of works with that naiveness. The light pale skin, it very much gives that dead aesthetic, which that's what it's all about. It feels weird saying dead aesthetic, but it is deathcore, you know? And I think deathcore might actually be something else, so I'm not gonna get the two confused, but it works so well, and it is so piercing as a doll. Now let's look at the new one. So I'm very 50-50 when it comes to this doll. So I'm gonna talk about the things I like first, and then start ranting about the things I don't like. Weirdly enough, and bar Draculaura, which I would have liked a bit more of Draculaura's old face mold on the new doll, but I think the new doll works. With Frankie, I actually completely prefer the new face mold for a few reasons. The main one being, it works for the character. A lot of little girls will buy these dolls and never interact with the canon. Especially I know when I was a kid, because it was a web series, if you didn't have access to YouTube, you weren't seeing it as much, you weren't watching it. So I remember when I first started buying Monster High dolls and playing, I actually hadn't ever seen the webisode. And I didn't even know it existed for quite a while, till somebody came round to my house. We played with Monster High, and she was like, oh no, that's not how it works, because this character XYZ. And I was like, well, how do you know that? And they were like, oh, there's a whole internet series that I just never knew about. But this face mold, I think, works better for character, because this character's represented as being naive, being literally new to the world. Like, that is their whole thing. And this face looks naive, and it looks young, which I don't love the looking younger aspect and the like massive ass eyes, but it does work for Frankie. And I actually think this is one of the moments where they've hit the nail bang on the head, and they've actually improved upon the original quite a bit. On this aspect, there are still a few aspects that I'm a little bit weary about. Other things I think they did well. We talked about inclusivity a bit earlier. Now it has a prosthetic leg, and this is so clever. Like I said, Barbie have done things like this as a brand, but it's always kind of marketed as like, oh, look what we've done. This just works. It's just there, and it makes so much sense. I mean, Christ, it is quite literally a few people sewn together. That's the whole point of it. So this character having that representation is amazing, and it shows through so much, and I think it's really well done. And I did not notice this, someone had to point this out to me, but the Frankie on the leg is actually wrote upside down because obviously she's wrote it. I love a little detail, I do, and I think this is so good. I will say, I was trying to talk about the positives, the only downside is that all the kind of screws and like cogs and what looks like stitches, which my partner pointed out, why are the stitches on a metal leg, but it might be like stapled together, is the same colour. That was a bit disappointing. That could have been a chance for a little bit more detail. It does all kind of just blend because it is the same plastic mould. And look, I get it cuts corners, I get it saves money, but icons were not built on a budget, I'm afraid. So that loses it a couple of points. But yet again, talking about things I like, they kept the two coloured eyes. I think that works so well. Yet again, it's literally a person sewn together. I do always wish, and this is a criticism of the original as well, not just the new one, that they'd done like stitching around the eye, because I get that there's the design going along the cheek, but I also think it would have worked a lot better if they'd literally had one of the eyes kind of sewn in and placed in, because it's, you know, clearly two added in. Or what I would have loved, and I get why they've never done this and I don't think they ever do, was literally like the half stapled face. Kind of like Beetlejuice. Give me the modern Beetlejuice, that aesthetic, because mommy. But like, I get why they haven't done that for a kids brand. Okay, deep down I do know this is a kids brand. I'm just denying it in my heart. But I do think they did that really well. Now, moving on to dislikes. As far as I know, they did keep all the original stitches in the legs, obviously bar the prosthetic one. It's slightly different because it's now a prosthetic leg, in the same place. My slight thing is, in the original one, they look like they're stapled. It literally looks like someone's took a staple gun and like into the skin, and it's a little bit more metal and it's a little bit more harsh, and I do like it more. I like that then it had like the little silver infilling for the colouring. It worked really well. Now the stitches do work and they do make sense. I just think the stapling was a little bit more rad, but I don't love it. I don't hate it that they've changed it. A random one that I should have mentioned when I did the face is the eyebrows on this doll. Immaculate. I love them. They've also now given her an eyebrow piercing, which is a little staple in her eyebrow, which is yet again why they should have kept the stapling. But it works so well. It's so cool. I love that they gave her that. I think it's rad. And also the big eyebrows kind of go back to that kind of naive look, but also she's an electric type. Well, not an electric type, I've just turned her into a Pokemon, but she's electric. So having big bushy eyebrows makes a lot of sense because her hair must be all the time. And that's what we're going to touch on. Now, I'm glad they kept the basis of her hair white. If you can't see it because it's going to be blurred out, but in the background I have a little picture of Frankenstein's bride, and it was always a big thing that she had the white streak in her hair. So I'm always glad that they kept white as a main tone for Frankie's hair. It's not very often that it isn't at least included. And they did keep some of the black streaks, which yet again is a callback to Frankenstein's bride. I hate the colourful extensions. I really think it is over the top and a little bit sickly, to be honest. And I do think this is a problem with modern dolls. It's too much, you know. They want to just throw a rainbow at everything, and I think especially for her, it doesn't work. Like, I like the idea that she is kind of factory made. She threw on an outfit that she thought was appropriate for a school, hence why she wears a uniform when she doesn't have to. When she's putting in hair extensions, like, I don't get it. And also, if they were going to do something new with her hair, this is yet again a bug I kind of have with the original as well as the modern one, is if you're electric, why have they never done a spiky haired Frankie? It makes no sense. They've done Bride of Frankenstein hair, but I'm talking about like spikes. I'm talking about like a bit of a pixie cut with spiky hair, because as well, the character of Frankenstein, I learn, is now gender fluid in the new show, which yet again makes a lot of sense. It really does work. If there was going to be any character they wanted to add this storyline into for inclusivity, because yet again, I do think it's important for LGBT people, especially considering Monster High used to have a little bit of an issue with this and eradicating some of the wishes of the original creators in like LGBT storylines. I do think it's good that they've added this, and I do think it's good that they added it to Frankie, because yet again, it's the same with the prosthetic leg. It makes sense. She is literally a few people sewn together, so the fact that they have that fluidity in their gender makes a lot of sense and it works really well. Now, I'm going to preference this. Gender fluid people do not have to present one way or another. They do not have to present feminine or masculine. It is completely up to them. I would have liked, though, if they were making this move and a little bit bolder with it, to make it a little bit more androgynous. I just think it would have looked cool, and I think Frankie would have looked amazing. Like, give her a spiky pixie. Put her in a suit. I want to see that for Frankie. This is more a request for the future. I do think it would look really cool with this doll. Now, her outfit. I think based off the prior comments, you can kind of tell where this is going, but it looks like a rainbow throw up. It's over the top, it looks messy, it doesn't look well put together. It kind of reminds me of My Little Pony made a doll line, and I feel like one of their dolls would wear this. And that's not very Monster High-ish, is it? And back to the flat sneakers, which I just don't like it. I just don't think it works very well. I really just, it's a bit boring. I will say though, for a character that's literally meant to have been created like a few days ago, walking in heels is probably quite tricky, so I do understand that. There are some aspects as well, like they changed the earrings from the Monster High School logo to lightning bolts. If the lightning bolts were a bit more of a darker defined colour, I think I would have liked this a lot, but it's the fact that yet again they just threw as much pastel as they could at it, and it just does not work as well. I don't think it looks as nice. I think the saddest part about this doll, looking at her, is if they had just picked a particular colour, and I think I would have been a bit picky regardless of what colour they picked. I think I just want it in that darker, grittier tone. It could have actually been a really cool outfit. I do like the little tartan skirt. I wish for the jacket they'd maybe given her like leather jacket, something a little bit more on edge instead of just like a zip up hoodie. Like, I don't think it works as well. I don't know what they're called, blazer. I don't think it works as well, and the colours are just messy. The shoes are not the same pink as anything else in this outfit, and it pisses me off too much because then it just feels messy and out the way, and then they've got the green lightning bolt flung on them when there's already a pink colour scheme going through this outfit. It's not hard to stick to. The original Frankie, everything blends into itself. The red on the dress is reflected in the handbag. The earrings are a bit of an outlier. Now, I don't remember my earrings for this doll being that blue, but I haven't seen my original Frankie for a while because she's hiding in my mother's loft. So maybe I'm just wrong. But the earrings were a little bit of an outlier, but everything else, the white from the top of the outfit feeds into the white and black of the shoes. The hair feeds into the outfit when it's black and white, and yet again the shoes. The new Frankie doll, nothing necessarily feeds into it. It's just, here's some streaks of colour, we're going to splash some colour at the wall and hope it fits. And I personally don't think it does. And now another big aspect is they've changed the skin tone. Now, her skin tone's looking a little bit more Laguna-ish, which we will get into because I have some thoughts. But I don't personally like the new skin tone for Frankie. I do think the dulled look works a lot better because I shall remind you all, she is dead. A lot of these girls, they're dead. Like, they have died, passed away. So kind of having that skin tone, I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I really like that. I think the new tone, especially with the fact they've thrown all these colours at the wall, just comes out looking a little bit gauche, and it doesn't work as well. And also, this is just a petty little side note, they changed her dog, and her original dog design was really cool. I really liked it. I lost a lot of the pets, but I never lost that dog because I thought it was amazing. So I'm very mixed on this doll. My main issue is I don't think this doll stands out enough, and maybe they're going to turn the tables a little bit on which doll they want to kind of be their signature character, but it doesn't look like they are because Frankie in the media is still very much the lead. So I could just be like being too picky, but she's not it girl. She's not, this is the leader of our show. She's kind of like, oh sweetie, who let you dress yourself this morning? And that's coming from me. I have no fashion sense, but, and hey, I might just be a dick because I don't wear a lot of colour anymore, but it's not working. It's not working. I don't like it, but I don't hate it. I do actually think I will end up adding this doll to my collection at some point. So I'm not going to diss her off completely. You know what? Let's bring up the rating board. We need to decide where she's going. Okay, I have decided I'm gonna put her at a firm A because I don't hate this doll and I don't love this doll, but this doll for a rebrand is fine. It works. I could see it moving forward, but it's not God tier. It is not the same as Draculaura where they necessarily improved it completely. They just made a good new doll, which if you are relaunching, especially after the disaster of their first relaunch, you've got to make it better. You've had time, and this isn't better, it's just good. So you know what, I'm giving it an A. Maybe I'm being a bit generous giving it an A, but that's how I feel as a relaunch. But let's move on to the next one before I rant way too much more about Frankie. A bit of an icon herself, the Aussie legend who isn't Australian anymore. It is your girl, Laguna Blue, which I have had to film this section about 5 times because I keep calling her Cleo. So if I call her Cleo during this, you didn't hear it, I didn't say it, nobody knows about it. That's the deal. But my girl Laguna. Now, I actually never owned a Laguna doll. I remember wanting one, and I really wanted the bed she had where you kind of put her in a tube and it had water in it. I'm not selling it very well, but it was mint. It was very imaginative. I didn't have her though, and I wasn't that fussed about the original doll, so I am going to go into this saying I have a little bit of a bias that I wasn't ever really fucked. Didn't really care as much. But we are here to compare. We are here to nitpick. Let's talk about what worked for the original doll. Now, I think what was lovely about Laguna is she had the little fins. There was a little detail added on. She had like the gills. She had the webbed fingers, which doll-wise, it was my first time I ever saw this kind of like detailing. And it wasn't even that detailed. It was just clear plastic between the fingers. But oh my god, did it work, and oh my god, did it make this doll stand out. And I could be lying about this because I can't see it on my image because she had that original hood on, so I apologise if I am, but I believe the original had the gilled ears as well. And she was a very iconic doll. I just personally, I don't know what it was as a child that made me not like her. Her outfit is very always like sport orientated, you know, she's got the little shorts on. She's an Aussie girl. She can take any weather. She is used to like mass heat. And she had like little gold bangles. Gold was usually a theme for this doll as well, which I really liked. Had the flower in her hair. She had that kind of sun-kissed blonde, which they have took into the new doll, but with like little streaks of blue, which they also took into the new doll, which I do like that they kept the hair for this doll. Now let's get into the new one because they've changed her skin colour pattern. And I really don't know how I feel about it. I do like this doll, so I'm going to start by talking about aspects I don't like about it because it's a little bit shorter than the things I do like. One of the things I don't like is they changed the skin tone. Now, I do to a degree understand why they changed the skin tone because they had 3 dolls that had this bluey grey skin tone to it, that being Ghoulia, Frankie, and then obviously Laguna. Gil as well technically had it as well, but if we're talking about the core line, it was these 3, and then a few other of the dolls did have this kind of like grey blue skin tone to them. So I can get why they want to distinguish her a little bit, and also she's kind of been pushed a little bit more into the main group. She always was, but it used to be a bit more Ghoulia, and we'll kind of talk why Ghoulia's been shoved out a little bit because there are some very valid reasons why she has been. But I look at the pink, and ironically she's the same colour as her pet fish in the original doll. I look at the pink and it's just, I don't know, I don't think it works. I like the face mould for this doll. I do think it's cute. Yet again, very much a younger face mould, but I do think it works. You know, she's in water all the time. She's got good skin. But there's something about the new skin tone which is just, I almost find it jarring. If they had done like a very light like pink, I think I'd have liked it more, but this is like, she just looks sunburnt. She looks like somebody took the original Laguna, put her in a fryer and burnt the bitch. Like, this is what it looks like. And I don't know, there is something about it I do not think translates as well. Now, on things I dislike, they managed to keep the gills. They kept it in the ears. There are some on the back of the arms as well. I'm not quite as sure on the back of the legs, but they have definitely kept the arm ones. Just to get rid of the webbed fingers. Why? it goes back to the Frankie thing of, it's not like it's graphic, it's not like it's gory, and also, unlike a lot of the pieces of the original Laguna doll, it's not even like it's a choking hazard. I mean, you can detach the hands, but if you're willing to detach Monster High hands, get ready, because they are so annoying to put back on. Why? In this is when I'm gonna crack my fingers. We're gonna start a big rant on something. Monster High. So why are they all being humanized? I hope I'm not the only one who has thought this, but it's like even dawning back to Draculaura of Doll I Love. My partner, who doesn't personally collect, doesn't really know much about them. Even he goes, well, it's not a vampire, it's an e-girl with fake fangs. They're very much shifting away from the monster aspect, which makes no sense. If they wanted a line of dolls that were just dolls, go make them. Don't make Monster High them. That's my issue. I feel like they are trying to make these dolls more humanized, more neutral, and it makes no sense for a line that basically, the whole thing is that they're monsters, the whole thing is that they're like werewolves, vampire, fish people. So it makes no sense they're neutralizing them. But I do like this doll. I like that they kept the original hair. I actually like that they made the hair a lot longer. I like this doll in particular because she's got the little space buns and then the bits at the front, and I am a sucker for a doll with a nice bun. I feel like that came across weird. I hope that translated well. But I also love her outfit. I think her outfit works very well. There is an issue though, and I'm going to address it, and I'm probably going to talk about it for too long, so get ready. This outfit looks very much like a 2020 outfit, or 2020, 21, 22, and it looks like one of those hydro flask girls. Now, there was a name for it. I think it was like girls. Whatever they were called, it was not but I hope people remember what I mean. This girl looks like she's got a hydro flask and she takes it everywhere, which makes sense for her because, you know, she cares about the ocean, because she quite literally lives in it. But here's my issue. I love her outfit. I think her outfit's iconic. I really like it. They've kept this kind of theme with her outfits throughout all of them of looking like a hydro flask girly. But Monster High used to set trends. Like I said, I was somebody influenced by their fashion choices and their fashion trends. They used to very much set the fashions. I worry that moving into the newer ones, they're copying the fashions. And here's the issue with that. In the modern day, we do not necessarily have trends anymore. We have micro trends. Micro trends come, they go through the market for maybe a couple of months, and then they go like that. It is so quick, and it is so dangerous to fall into appealing to micro trends. Because for me, her outfit's quite nostalgic. Okay, I lived through lockdown. I lived through the hydro flask girlies. That is very much what that outfit is to me. And maybe that is just my opinion, and maybe I'm being very one-sided on it. But that was a micro trend, and I like it because it's nostalgic. What happens to all the people that don't find that nostalgic, maybe weren't on the internet at that time, or, you know, weren't around at that time, or weren't, you know, engaging with TikTok at that time? Then the outfit is just outdated and kind of already, which is crazy because like the hydro flask girly trend feels like yesterday to me, but actually is quite old now. And I think Monster High, and this goes through all of the dolls, is towing this very weird line between not creating outfits anymore, but sculpting outfits around existing trends that don't exist anymore. Hydro Flasky girls, dead as these monsters. But yet they're copying aspects of the outfit that just feel very much like that, even down to the colour pattern, even down to the skin tone change. It just feels like a trend that's already moved on. And I think as a company, this might plague Monster High because, like we said, micro fashions, they come, they go. If you try to follow them, you either have to be a fast fashion company, which a doll line isn't, or you have to accept that you're going to be outdated really quickly. And that doesn't work well for a doll brand where at least, especially their core dolls, are sold constantly. You don't release a core line and then maybe like a festival doll or a swimming doll rotate it out slowly. Your core dolls need to always be there. And some of them are already becoming outdated fashion-wise, which it just doesn't work. Look at the Bratz dolls. The Bratz dolls, 2001, early 2000s, there was still very much a set trend that had kind of fallen down from the 90s. And the Bratz, could look at their market, could look at their economy and be like, okay, these trends aren't moving quickly. Mini skirts, denim, this is sticking around, this isn't going anywhere. So they could kind of ride that wave, take fashion inspiration from that. Unfortunately, in the modern day, you can't do that because we cannot rely on trends sticking around because of the rise of things like TikTok. Fast form content has ruined the ability to copy modern day fashion because modern day fashion depends on what hashtag got popular on that given day. And it does make me worry for doll companies, not just Monster High, but all doll companies, that they're trying to ride a wave that will drown them very quickly. And I feel like this slightly is a going off topic, but I feel like it has to be mentioned when it comes to this particular doll, because I just get that vibe. And as much as I love her and I am actually in the process of buying her, by that I mean when I get off my fat ass and go pick it up, I do love her, but I love her for nostalgia. And nostalgia only sells so much when it's the fashion, not the actual doll itself. Frankenstein, the original doll, nostalgic for many reasons. The new Laguna, nostalgic because she looks like an old TikTok trend that happened when we were all locked in our houses. It doesn't quite add up, does it? I may say, maybe this is just my opinion and maybe I'm just really harsh, but this is, as much as I love this doll, what cried out to me. I will say a big improvement though, because I'm having a little double look at the image now, is I'd never realised how ugly Laguna's original shoes are. They look like she's ripped up Cleo's shoes and nicked something off Draculaura. So, you know what, I'll actually big up the modern shoes, which I doubt a lot. They're cool, but I think it's time we start rating her because I've ranted about her a little bit too much. I do like this doll and I am definitely adding this doll to my collection. She does go into B tier, just because, like I said, I think she's kind of riding the wave, pun intended, of micro fashion, but also, yet again, they've took away the aspects that make her a monster. They've took away the webbed fingers, they've took away the more distinct skin tone. Now she's just pink, and it feels like she's pink because they think, oh, girls love pink, not a, set choice of, oh, we've chosen this because Monster High is da-da-da-da, And even though she has the leg tone with the different colours, which obviously a lot of fish can go not translucent, but they can change their colours. Look, I'm not a marine biologist, okay? I don't know the terminology. I don't think it's an improvement. And this comes from somebody that wasn't actually fussed about the original Laguna Blue. So to look at the new version and be like, yeah, it's not massively that much of an improvement. I'm sorry, it's got to go on B tier. She's just not quite hit the mark. Now, moving on to one of the it girls again, who would absolutely roast the shit out of you. She is nobody's nice girl. It is Cleo Denial. Now, I am going to be really upfront with you guys again. I wasn't overly fussed with Cleo as a kid. I had the sleepover version of the Cleo doll, but I never had the original, and I was never that fussed that I didn't have the original. I wanted the Cleo doll more because I wanted her for the plot when I would kind of play along the storyline with friends and stuff. Not necessarily because I overly loved her, though I will say I loved her in the web series. I just wasn't fussed as much when I was playing the games with her. So I have a little bit of a bias, but Cleo very much plays that in the middle girl. She's not a nice person, but she is a nice person really. She'd help her friends, but she'd also chuck her friends down a well. And I love the energy they give her because in the original web series, she's just horrible. Like, a lot of the time, she's just straight up horrible to her boyfriend, her friends, even though she's got like that heart of gold deep down. It's very deep down. And I actually really appreciate that in media when they're willing to be like, yeah, this isn't actually a nice person. She loves herself more than anything else. But you know what? Some people are like that, so here, have it. And I do really like it. I think what did the best with Cleo is they had a very set mark of what they wanted to present. Mummies and mummy media has always been kind of like, this is what it is, this is what you get. With the fact that she basically just had to be wrapped around in bandages, and that's what made her work. There were a lot of aspects in the original doll that were so clever, like having the little like tinsel bits through her hair that were gold, a very much gold motif. It kind of worked off the skin pattern they gave her. They added it into the makeup, as well as having that very regal blue, which now they've made like Frankie's skin tone, actually. It's that kind of blue. Worked really well. The kind of having the little accessories of the wrapping. Her makeup was always very sharp, very on point, which makes sense. She's a diva. She's going to make sure she looks her best. Now, I obviously don't have a lot to say about this doll because I really don't have many opinions about this doll. So moving on to the newer version of the doll. Do you think this doll, despite the fact the face mold has clearly changed so much, has somehow managed to avoid the aspect of looking younger? I don't know quite how. I don't know if it's the eye makeup or the sharpness. She definitely looks younger than the original doll, but I don't think she looks as babyish. And I do think a lot of it comes down to the makeup. They have also changed the skin tone on the new doll, but I actually think it works a lot more. It's got that beautiful kind of bronze, sun-kissed look, and for a mummy, I think it works very well. You know, hot climate, it looks gorgeous. She does look sun-kissed. I think it's a really good choice. They have actually put a bit more detail into her makeup as well. I love the little slit in her lip. I don't know if there's actually a name for that. To be honest, it makes me think of Star Wars. I love the detailing they've done around the eyes, and I think this is what kind of pulls it together to make the face not look so young. They have also kept her outfits in a weird way very similar. Like, I'm looking at the two of them now, and a lot of the core elements, like I said, mummies aren't hard to do. You've got lots of artwork from the Egyptian times, you know, you've got lots to pull off, and as long as you throw in a couple of bandages, it's going to work. So they didn't have necessarily a hard job, but I think they've translated it very well. She's also one of the few dolls that have kept boots and with a heel. Now, I'm very grateful that Monster High did this for at least a couple of them, and especially for Cleo. Like we said, she's the it girl. She's very highly strung. I think it'd be very weird if they took that element away from her, because she thinks she's higher than everyone anyway. Her shoes might as well be as well. And I do really like it. I don't love the hair with the blue as much. I do think they should have stuck with the gold, especially with the new skin tone. I think it would have pulled that sun-kissed effect out a little bit more. So I do think it's a shame they changed that. They are very set on having like streaks and hair colours thrown into all their dolls at the minute. And I think it is because, you know, like we said, it's kind of chasing the trends. But they did it better with Draculaura because everyone has that hair. Everyone has split hair. And it's stuck around for quite a while now. We can all thank Melanie Martinez for that. Like, let's know who we're meant to be grateful for. Melanie Martinez stole it from Cruella de Vil, but Melanie Martinez made it. So all say thank you to Mummy, please. They also added an element to this doll, which if they had managed to pull it off better, I think I honestly might have been tempted to put this doll in S tier. Now, that's a very bold statement, but I don't think they pulled off what they were trying to do quite as well, which is they gave her the like mummy bandage wrap on her skin. Really cool idea. That could have been so mint. Because when you think about it, the mummy wraps eventually will have absorbed into her skin. I know it's a little bit of a gross thing to think about, but also it would constantly be attached to her. It's a big part of mummies. There's two issues with this. The main issue is they only put it on like one patch of her leg, which felt a bit lazy. They could have dotted it around a little bit more. I do actually think I'm lying. I think there's a little bit on one of her hands as well. But I would have liked to have seen that kind of motif going out throughout the whole body. Kind of same with Claudine Wolfe. They should have done like fur, and they should have done it for the whole body. I think they could have done that with Cleo. But also, the issue is they didn't colour it at all. It is the same colour as her skin tone. And it doesn't look like bandages. Like, I personally just think it looks like a dodgy mould. And I asked my partner, who like doesn't know much about it, I was like, hey, what do you think? And he was like, oh, it looks like a burn victim. And I don't really disagree. It does. It just looks like somebody's set a lighter to this doll and made it bumpy. So it's one of those things where it could have been really good, and they just kind of didn't put the effort in. It's the same with Frankie's prosthetic leg. It's that frustration of they had a good idea for the new dolls, but they didn't seem to want to put the effort into making it a good product. Which, you know, money is time, time is money. I do think Monster High probably understood that they were taking quite a big risk in relaunching, because they very much isolated their fan base, but just doesn't quite work as I think they intended. Put this doll at a really firm A tier, because you know what? It's kind of the same with Frankie. Like, I love the original doll more. I think the original doll is a bit more iconic, but it's not a downgrade at all, and it has kept a lot of Cleo essence, which I think is what's mainly important when you're rebooting a doll line, that you don't erase the original doll, because that's what got people into your fandom and that's what made people want to buy from you. So I think the fact that this doll is so clearly Cleo denial, you could not be in denial about the fact this is Cleo denial. So I think the fact that they've managed to take her, bring her into the modern age and be like, yeah, this is her, just a bit rebooted, it works really well. I don't love it, I don't hate it, but you know what? It is a really good reboot for a doll. And now finally, last but not least, because I'm sure if you've managed to make it this far, you are so sick of having to hear me talk about this, but we are moving on to the ghoul herself, Ghoulia. Now, I am going to get some things out of the way before we discuss this doll, and it is social aspects around this doll. Now, Ghoulia is being very much rewritten and kind of pushed out a little bit, and understandably to some degree. Now, a big thing with Ghoulia, if you were somebody who watched the original web series, will know that Ghoulia didn't speak. Ghoulia kind of, I don't know, like made zombie noises and grunted. And Monster High is trying to retcon that a little bit. And a lot of people have brought up how this could be problematic. I don't personally have a set opinion on it, because as a kid, it was just, oh, she's a zombie, that's the noises she makes. And when I used to play with the doll as a kid, I just would make her speak. I didn't keep the zombie aspect that she couldn't speak. She was very much a yapper, if I remember correctly, when I used to play with the dolls. But Monster High has kind of been like, yeah, we're not overly happy that we made that decision. And I can understand why. Verbalization and speech is such an important thing. And them taking the step back and being like, hey, we're not maybe the proudest of how this was executed, I think is a good step. I'm not massively opinionated on it. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions about it. But I wanted to get that out of the way before I started ranting about the doll, because I think it has a big part of why they've kind of pushed this doll aside a little bit and made her a lot subtler. To talk about the original doll, I love the original Ghoulia. I really like her. Her stunning blue hair. Her outfit, I literally talked about it at the beginning of the video, was a big like fashion inspo for me. The fact she wore the little gloves, the red jeans, the little like piano belt. I loved that. I wanted that so bad. Her shoes are probably my favourite from the original Monster High doll shoes. They are definitely the ones that, between her and Frankie, if I ever do buy any of the shoes, it's gonna probably end up being Ghoulia's, because they are so cool. They are literally knee-high Converse, high heels. I bought knee-high Converses because of this doll. Like, she set that trend for me. She got it rolling for me. I took so much fashion inspo from this doll. Like, I used to wear so much black and red because of her. The kind of overlaying t-shirts as well, I very much fell into that trend. And as a busty girl, it didn't work. I have so many hideous pictures of me as a teenager wearing like long ass tops and then this tiny vest top that looks like it's my bra. It didn't personally work for me, but she was so iconic. Her makeup was very harsh, and I love a harsh makeup look. That red lipstick, you could see that 5 miles away. I loved it. Her eyes were very smoky, dashed out. You couldn't really see it because she had glasses on, but it was very much that smoky eye, which, iconic, yet again, got me into looking like I've been beat up every day doing a smoky eye as a teenager. But I loved it. I loved it so much. So when I saw the new doll, boring came to mind. It's boring. Now, let's get into it. Start off with the aspects I like. I like one aspect mainly, and that is that they kept the original blue hair. I will say, I've heard a lot of people slag off the outfit. Now, I do think it's not Ghoulia's outfit. It's not what I'd imagine for her. It's not what I would have liked her style to be rebooted as. But I do actually kind of like this outfit. I'm not gonna lie, I think I'd wear this outfit. So when I've seen everyone slag it off, I'm like, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it's me. But I like it. I do like the brain jumper. I just wish they hadn't put any colouring along the side of the sleeve, just kept it black and white, and then maybe kept the top black and just had the skirt as pink. I do like that they went with that brain motif. It obviously works very well for a zombie, but like the middle belt on the skirt seems to have hearts on. I think they should have skipped that. I think that was too much detailing. Her shoes, they're just boring. Like, this is such, like, I've talked about this too much now to give a shit. They're so boring. She had amazing shoes. She had amazing shoes that now sell for hundreds of pounds. Keep the shoes iconic. Dolls have always, since the dawn of Bratz, had iconic shoes, and I think that is something we're moving away from in the doll industry, and we need to bring it back. We can't walk in cool shoes, so they have to. I also hate that they changed her glasses and made them pink and made them this really weird, like, I don't know, diamond almost shape. I don't think it works very well. And also, she just doesn't have makeup on anymore. Like her lips are yet again that horrible off pinky peachy colour, which does not work. And her eyebrows, like, I shouldn't judge anyone on their eyebrows. Her eyebrows are horrible. They're horrendous. They've proven to us with the Frankie doll that they can do nice eyebrows. They can do a good eyebrow mould. Hers are horrible. They just don't look nice. And also, the skin tone has changed again. But the original Ghoulia her skin was grey, and it worked so well for a zombie. She is literally a rotting corpse. Thou shalt not forget this. My girl's rotting, okay? Rot Girl Summer, that's Ghoulia's. And now, I don't know what colour she is now, but she looks human. That looks like a human doll. Like, you were to tell me that's a transfer student that's a human that's come to study at Monster High, I'd be like, yeah, cool, where's Ghoulia? The best way I can describe it is my mum's anemic, and I mean, it just looks like her on most days. I'm not gonna lie, my mum's that skin tone most days. I think, yet again, they picked really bold colours and then toned down the skin colour so that it almost blends into the clothing, and it looks ugly. I really don't like it. I do not think it works well for the doll at all. I don't have a lot to say about her because they have not done a lot. So, to be honest, it's just basic. Let's get rating. Minute to kind of think about this, but I do think I'm going to put her in B tier. I don't think it's necessarily a bad doll, but it's not Ghoulia. It's not a Ghoulia reboot. This is a whole new doll. It looks very basic. It looks very human. So, you know what? No, I'm changing my mind. I'm putting her on F tier. I'm moving her all the way down. It's too basic. It looks too human. I've changed my mind. I'm a stubborn person. I don't usually change my mind. Yeah, F tier. She's living there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do think the future of Monster High looks bright, even though I've ranted. I do hope that they take things on board that the community is pointing out to them, like dulling down dolls. I do hope they improve this. I think the Skellector collection is an amazing thing that Monster High have been doing. I personally got one of the Wednesday Adam dolls, the Raven Dance one, and it is so beautiful. I don't know if that counts as a Skellector, but she is gorgeous. But some of the Skellector dolls, like the Gremlin one, the Brady twins, they're absolutely amazing. I do think the future of Monster High is bright. I just hope they're willing to listen to people when they say, we want monsters. Monster High is an iconic brand, and we don't want to lose the iconicness from these dolls. But, oh my god, you have listened to me rant for so long. My voice has definitely been lost again. If you can deal with me being such a scatterbrain and sit through this whole video, I love you so much. Well done. You probably deserve a medal, but like always, like and subscribe, and I might see you again in the next one. Bye, bitch.